Hello everyone and welcome to week 2 of Christmas Tag Tuesday, and this week Julie Carriere and myself are going to feature tags with the Freshly Baked collection. You can see I've got some supplies in front of me. I'm going to be making some circle tags, but I am doing them with a little bit of a difference. I'm going to be using the stamp images from Freshly Baked, and if you order this set with the thin cuts you get a very cool baking tray as well as thin cuts for all these elements that are highlighted in blue. But the magnet sheet that this comes with is actually twice the size, so it didn't fit inside this stamp set holder. I love these envelopes. They're nice and sturdy and I like to be able to keep everything together. So all I've done is cut the magnet sheet in half because that still holds the airing rack, and the other thin cuts fit on the other side and that will fit inside the envelope. I've got some other items that I'm going to bring in, some stamp sets, and I'll talk about those while I'm using them. But I want to get into the actual stamping because I'm going to do my colouring with the tri-blend markers. And all I'm using is gold brown shades, gold brown blend and dark red blend. I'll put these aside for the moment and I'm going to give you some tips on die cutting and also what I do when I'm stamping with my Misti. So you can see I've got a panel cut here. This is a leftover strip, and I put the images that I want to do when I'm doing a series of things like cards or tags, and I put those and work out what width of paper I need to do that with. And because this is a leftover piece, I can stamp this one and then basically turn this around and ink this up. Now you want to use either Intense Black ink or VersaFine Onyx Black. These are the best ones that I've found when using tri-blend markers. And the reason why I like doing this in the Misti, and I do use just a whiteboard eraser to help transfer the ink rather than my hand like this all the time. I find my hands get a little bit sore. But because I use my Misti, it's just a simple process of putting in the next sheet and flipping it around. Now this is a little bit longer. Sometimes I measure it all out and cut the piece to match, but I do have some leftovers. I don't need to double stamp this. I'm quite happy, although that little heart is a little bit speckly. So what I can do is just go back in, as long as I put it in the same position, and ink up the areas that I want to apply more ink. And that's a much deeper black image. And if you make tags and you like to have the same tags for everyone, this is a really good system to get everything prepped and ready. And then you need to set these aside for the ink to dry a bit before you bring in your markers. So while that ink is drying, I'm going to cut the cooling rack. And all I need to cut with the cooling rack is this portion here, because I know that my tag is going to fit and I can save this to use for something else. I'm going to attach this die cut to my cutting platform, and I'm just securing it like that, and I'm putting it on an angle so that it's not feeding through with the flat edge to where the press comes down. You'll hear a bit of cracking if you do that. And I'm using the Close to My Heart die cutting machine. So what I do with this one, normally I cut everything on the loosest pressure because when it's a die like this, it's not intricate. So I can cut this on the loosest pressure there is. So that's number 5 on the dial. You just wind it all the way down to the loosest one. But this one takes a little bit more work, not just because it's intricate, but because it's with silver glitter paper as well. So I'm going to increase the pressure to 0 and run this back and forth. And that should help cut through all of those little squares. So let's have a look at how we did. You can see that that's cut through quite well. And then you can either push them out like that or get your piercing tool and poke them out. But if you've got one of these bristle type rotary brushes, you can go over it. It does make a mess. Whenever I do things like this, I tend to not worry too much about the floor, and then it's time to vacuum later. But you can see quite quickly how easily that pushed those out. It's a lot quicker than individually poking each one of those out with your fingers or with the piercing tool. If you wanted to, you could save all of these pieces to put in a shaker card. And then I just need to cut my tag out. Now I am putting this on an angle. I did try doing it with it all nice and square. We're going to eliminate a section of this for the tag. So I prefer to do this on an angle. It's just personal choice for me. and I have reduced the pressure on my die cutting machine, and you can see that's enough pressure for a fairly clean cut, thin cut, or a clean cut die to cut through the silver foil. If you don't have a die cutting machine where you can adjust the pressure, you just need to put a little shim in it. It could be a piece of cardstock. You can buy metal shims to run through your machine. If you don't do that, you could end up with something like this. This is one that I did, and I didn't have the pressure up enough, and even though I ran it forward, back and forward again, it didn't quite cut through the pieces all that cleanly. I can get them out, but it is tedious to sit there and pick them all out. It's much quicker if you increase the pressure, and then you can go over with that little brush tool. Now there's always a bit of glitter stuck to the plate after I've done this, so I do like to wipe it off just so that it doesn't transfer to my next pieces that I'm going to die cut. I am going to be using this die again, and also the ones for cutting out these elements, but I'm going to do a quick colouring of the gingerbread man so that you can see what I've done and explain how to cut out and colour this little snowflake cookie. So I'm starting with earth brown shades, and I'm starting with the darkest, and I'm just doing some very quick colouring for this. I'm putting some areas where I think will be most shaded, like under his little bow tie, around these areas here. And then I'm coming in with the blend of the earth brown blend and using the dark, and just using little circular motions. I'm going over top and extending it out and pushing back into that colour. I know Julie has included some colouring with her tags this week, so you do really need to go along and watch what she's done. She's gone into a little bit more detail than what I've done with these images. So now I've swapped to the mid, and I'm going over top of all these areas. I'm letting a little highlight at the top of his head, and I'm just blending this back in. And we all know that when we bake biscuits, they don't come out looking a flat colour. Usually around the edges, for mine, are a little bit darker than the inside section of the biscuit. I used to make gingerbread biscuits with my children every year. They used to love cutting them out. We don't do it quite as much now, but when we do it, we have a little bit more spice to them than what we used to do when they were younger. So that's all I'm doing for the gingerbread man. You can see I've got some others coloured in here that I'm going to use. For the bow tie, I just use two colours. I use the darkest shade of the dark red blend and the lightest shade because it's just a small area. So I'm going to cut all of these pieces out, including the snowflake. The snowflake biscuit doesn't have an outline around it, so you do need to cut that out first, and then I'm going to show you how to add the colouring to it. You just need to spin this around until you get the right orientation for it so it matches up. So I have all of these lined up, but that's only a small section. I need to make the rest of my tag because it's not a little see-through tag like this. If you wanted to, you could create tags just like that and put some ribbon on them, and then cut another one of him and put it on the back so you've got a little area to do to and from, and that would look really cute hanging off a jar. In fact, I think I will do one of these to show you at the end of this video, so hang around. I've got a couple of extra examples to show you once I've finished making this main tag. So I'm using craft cardstock and scarlet cardstock, and so that I can run multiple things through my die cutting machine at one time because I've got the longer platform, I'm going to cut these out at the same time as I do this and cut two tags in one pass. So because I've decided to create an extra one of these, I'm going to run these two pieces together so that I've got a backing piece for this little cookie, so you don't see the colouring in portion because alcohol markers blend through, and this will give me a little area to write who the gift is for. I'll just put all my pieces in this little dish here so that I'm ready to assemble everything. And for this layered tag, I'm actually going to adhere the top section together, and we're going to bend this piece back. So I've just brought in my score pal so that I can put a score at around 2 3/4. And I have two of these that I've cut out, so I'm going to pick this one here to put on the top of my scarlet piece of paper, and I'm going to cut away that top section. And then I just need to trim just the tiniest little bit. You can see them flying off here onto the mat, so that when I adhere this to the tag, there is a little bit of room for this to be able to fold over without getting stuck. So you just need to do a couple of little tests with it. Don't take away too much. So that should be enough for me to put this onto here and be able to fold that up easily. So that works well. I can put this away. The best thing to use for adhering this is a liquid adhesive. This one's at the end of its bottle, and you can get it out in small amounts. You can also get the aqua glue out in small amounts. But because this is so tiny, I am going to use the Barely Art glue, and I'm just going to hold this and do little dabs around the outside areas first. I'm not going to have to apply glue to the entire cooling rack silver glitter piece. That would take me way too long. So then I'm just going to go through and put some little dabs of glue into these middle areas on some of the areas. I'm going to bring in my tag, and by using liquid glue, that means you've got time to be able to move things around. The next thing I'm going to do is stamp onto my tag the sentiment that I'm going to put. There is a special running at this very moment from me to you. It's available until the end of December, and there are little sentiments you can see from this one that you get the sentiment for the tag and a from and a to. And this one is from the From Me to You festive. I've bought the bundle of this one, and each stamp comes in its own envelope. But I have worked out that you can actually put the 3 sets into one envelope just to save on a little bit of space for storage. So that's why I've got the label in here. If you ever want to look at the reference number for these, it's always printed on the Carriere sheet. So I will always have that reference for it. But rather than having 6 envelopes stacked up in my fridge bin that I keep on my desk, I thought this was an easier way to go. So I'm going to stamp Just For You onto the craft cardstock in Scarlet ink. Make sure that's inked up nicely, and this is just gorgeous. It runs all the way across this bauble, so it goes from edge to edge with the cursive script and the extended lines. I really love it, and it's a delicate image as well, so that's why I'm stamping it on the firmer side of my Versamat, not the spongy side, because if you press down too much on the spongy side, these delicate images can smoosh out. And then I'm putting to and from on the back. Let the ink sink in, and there we have the back part of the tag. Now this one doesn't need a score line on it because I'm going to attach the top here and then it's going to flip up. So I just need to put a little bit of glue around this top section. Hold them together and turn it until I get them in the right position, and just hold that piece at the top together until the glue takes to the paper, and you can see that will fold up just like so to have a little card style gift tag. Now all I need to do is bring in my little cookies and work out how I'm going to arrange these. And that's just reminded me, I promised I was going to show you how to colour this in, or how I like to colour this piece in. I'm not going to draw a line. I could use this marker, the Le Pen drawing marker, to draw around it. That is alcohol ink safe if you let it dry. But because I've got these as sort of guidelines and I want to leave a little bit of space, I can just go around the edges like this and create my own outline, and there is a slight impression from the die cutting as well. And we all know that when we bake biscuits, they do sometimes spread out. They don't always retain a perfect shape. So I'm doing the same sort of blending that I did with the gingerbread man, and I'm just bringing in the colors in the order that I did before, starting with the lightest of the shades and then the darkest of the blend, and then moving my way into the center of the biscuit. It's going to go around some little areas, touch those up just slightly because I do want it extended past the decorative elements a little bit, but I don't want to go right to the edge. So now I'm just trying to decide if I'm going to leave these as two little gingerbread men or put a third one on here. And I know we always work in rules of 3, but I think the 2 is actually working for me this time. So what I'm going to do is put some liquid glue just down 1/2 of the bottom gingerbread man, because I'm going to have him coming off the edge. And you do need to use liquid adhesive that's quite strong when you're adhering to glitter paper. And this one I'm going to pop up on 3D foam tape. So I'm just going to put him down here like this. Super cute. So this looks like actually it could be a decorative bauble when you look at it like this. If you wanted to keep the entire section cut like that, you could cover the whole entire tag and make that into a Christmas bauble pattern. But I've decided I want the look of a cooling rack. So now I just need to add some twine to the top of these, and these are going to be gifts that either get tied around a cellophane bag or a jar. I'm going to make the top layer fairly long, so I've got enough room to actually wrap that round a little jar, and then I'm going to have a smaller one to tie the bow. And I'm going to tie these exactly how Julie did in her week 1 video when she did her tags with the gorgeous reindeers. Oh, that's my bow piece. Let me get myself right here. So I'm going to start with the longer part of the twine and pull one section through to the back. And then do the same thing for the top hole. I'm just going to pull one section right through to the back. I love these double hole tags. They do give a lot more variety to the tag toppers and how you dress them up. And then I've got my little loop here. And I can pull through my string. You don't have to use a crochet hook. You can just use your hands to do this. And now my favorite bit to do on camera. I never like tying bows while I'm videoing, so we'll see how I go. I tie a knot and just make a bow for the top, and then adjust the loops so that they're about the same size. And then I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to tie a knot in the back just to secure it until it's ready to tie. I'm just going to make sure that my ends are roughly the same length, and then fuss with this a little bit so that they drag down over top. I've got one a little bit longer, so I'm just going to chop a little bit of that off. And to dress this up just a little bit more, I'm going to bring in some sequins. I'm really only going to add around 3. These are the holiday sequins. These are still available to order online. They were from a collection, I think from a couple of years ago. And because I've put them straight onto the glue dot, it's quite easy to pick them up. And I found you do need to use glue dot. I did try to use glue on this, but because the silver glitter paper sits up a fair way, the sequins wouldn't adhere to the cardstock. So this is all finished now. I'm going to have a play on camera to see if I can get this to work. I don't know how I'm going to go with the glue for the first one, but we'll give it a try because I think it might look a bit special. I'm going to apply it to all of this area. I'm not going to try and work out where these little parts are going to go. I'm just going to sit him on there, turn him upside down, and then grab my little white one. I'm being fairly generous with the glue. Then I'm going to try and line him up so he sits on the back. because when I do a tag or when I'm using alcohol markers, it's okay if that shows through, but if I can work out how to cover that up, I'm going to try that. That looks a bit cute. I quite like that. I'm going to attach some twine to this and then I'll show you the other tags that I've made. So here are the two tags that I just made. I really love how this looks. I'm really pleased with the end result for this. It will look really gorgeous hanging on a package or a wrapped gift, especially if you use a plain paper that will show from behind, or if you hang it on a jar of cookies. I think that will look really, really sweet. So it is very delicate, but you'll be able to wrap that around and attach it to the baked gift. The other two that I've made to show you, this one looks like an all white tag, but I've actually double tagged it so the underside of this is in the scarlet. So that gives a nice tone to this message that's stamped here. And that's another one from the festive collection. I really love these stamp sets. The Just For You goes with this one as well that I used on this tag, but the magic of Christmas never ends. Its greatest gifts are family and friends, and this one here, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. They're both gorgeous, and these ones actually have some other little decorative elements that you can put onto your tags as well, and each one of these sets come with their own to and from, which is really, really cool. These funny ones have the little banners and a different sort of strip there and a solid banner here. So it's a lot of variety to dress up your tags. And you'll notice my little gingerbread man here. He is from the Freshly Baked Digital Art Collection. So if you don't have the stamp sets, but you have the digital files, you can create these tags fairly quickly and without all the colouring, just by cutting your images out on your Cricut machine, or if you have a Brother or a Silhouette machine, that works as well, because these are SVG files. And the SVG files have all of these images here as well. And the last one that I have to show you is a stack of 3 cookies. So it's similar to the gingerbread men, but I've used 3 of the images, the heart, the snowflake, and the Christmas tree. And I don't know if you can pick up on camera, but after the ink had dried from the colouring, from the tri-blend markers, I put some clear shimmer brush on top to make it look a little bit like frosting on top of the tag. And this has got the Just For You with the to and from on the back as well. If you haven't already watched Julie's video, I will have a link in the description box below and at the end of this video. And I wanted to take the opportunity to let you know that if you missed out on the Creative Design team's 31 Days of Christmas card event, it is now open for replay access. We had a card posted from one of the Creative Design team each and every day from the 1st to the 31st of October, and with that comes a handout as well. And we actually created, between all 7 of us, 111 cards with variations on what we were teaching each day. So if you missed out on registering before the event started, check the details below and you will find a link. And once you join, you have access to that to replay whenever you like. It's a private Facebook group, so it will stay there for you to refer back to next year and the year after as well, and so on. Thank you so much for joining me for week 2 of Christmas Tag Tuesday. I look forward to seeing you again next week for week 3. I hope you can join us then. Happy crafting and bye for now.